Today's podcast is brought to you by Tetra Hearing. Tetra Hearing isn't just hearing protection, it's hearing perfection. Not me. Are you getting out this weekend?
Yeah, I have a friend with a resi Sunday at Grizzly Island, and then I'm going to put in for YOLO Friday night and see if I get lucky. And if I don't get lucky, I'll stay home and whatever.
Yeah, we just had the YOLO manager on literally the last episode talking about the changes.
Garrett.
Yeah, he was talking about the changes that are going on and some of the units that got good growth. So it's actually some pretty good information. So we'll be putting it out there.
I hunted doves there one day during dove season. The dove hunting wasn't too good, but the habitat looked really nice.
Yeah.
He sounded like they've really...
He was stoked on it.
Yeah, what's great is like he's an outdoorsman. He's a hunter, and he wants people to have success. But it sounds like they've done a lot this summer, moving water around, and really done some stuff to the units, which is cool.
It's good. So welcome back to another episode of Save It for the Blind, brought to you by Tetra Hearing as well as Kershaw Knives. So not only are we now protecting our hearing with Tetra, we are being able to cut up our game with our Kershaw Knives. And today's guest joining us is Holly Heyser, hunting writer and mentor, and my usual co-host, Jeff Smith. So Holly, welcome back to
Thanks.
Holly.
Thanks. It's good to be here in this room, which looks so different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's actually used now. It's
also that.
Yeah. Well, we're excited. Obviously, the hunting season's coming up. Every year is different, and last year was
this year's the year.
Last year was no exception to the rule. You put out a data-driven article in our magazine talking about the highlights.
I'm so sorry about
and not
that.
so highlights of last season.
Truth hurts sometimes.
It does.
Well, I think a lot of people hunters in general are always optimistic for one, but
ridiculously.
Last year was a down year in terms of production, in terms of waterfowl harvest. But let's kind of deep dive into this and kind of what you found. The big decline in hunter success and kind of the reasons for that and why it happened, where it happened, and what you found. Because you do an awesome job digging into the details. I think you always have done that. So let's talk about it.
Can we take a step back first and get her background on how she got into hunting and kind of work our way into that?
We can get there.
Yeah. I want to hear that story to get you to where you are now so data-driven that you're producing these articles that folks use when... Was it 15 years ago you weren't hunting?
18. I started 18 years ago.
So, I'd love to hear that story and work our way into this data-driven article that you did produce.
Well, I did data actually before I became a hunter. And then, I became a hunter and found out there's all this hunting data. And like, it couldn't be any better than that. It's everything I love all at once. So, how I got started hunting, I did not come from a hunting family. My dad stopped hunting before I was born. My aunts and uncles hunted. I had an aunt who one day they sent her out, they lived in the Paiute Mountains in the summer, and they sent her out with 6 bullets and said, bring home dinner. And she brought back 5 carcasses, including a mountain lion. That's the story. It's probably half garbage. But even if it's half garbage, it's
still awesome.
It's still really cool. So my family had stopped hunting. My dad liked raising pigs. He liked the convenience of being able to walk out and shoot something rather than actually have to go out into the woods and do it, or the marsh. So what happened is I lived in Minnesota for a couple years, and my boyfriend at the time and I were friends with the hunting and fishing writer at the newspaper where we worked. Oh, yeah, I should say that. I was like a newspaper reporter and editor for 20 years. That's my first professional background. So our friend was the hunting and fishing writer, and he got my boyfriend into hunting. And when the boyfriend said something about it, he's like, I'm thinking about getting a gun. I'm like, why? And he said, to hunt. And I said, well, you're going to eat what you kill? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, that's cool. So he hunted, and he always invited me to go with him because he thought it was awesome. It's like, oh, wow, let's go hunt in the ice and snow when it's 10 degrees out. That sounds great. No, not really. And then we moved here, and he tried to figure out what's the best thing to hunt here and discovered that we were in the middle of this duck mecca that most of the country doesn't seem to know about. Yep. And so he started hunting ducks, but he taught himself. So he brought home coots a lot in the beginning and didn't really know how to cook them. And you got to know what to do with a coot. And he didn't yet. And so that was kind of gross. And then he finally started killing ducks. And I remember one day we were sitting at the kitchen table. It was me, him, and our cat Paca. And he had roasted some ducks whole, and we were just sitting there picking them up, eating them like apples. We're just like, nom, 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 nom. And and the duck fat is dribbling down our chin, and the cat is circling the table like meow, meow, like a little shark waiting to be fed some scraps because she loved roasted bird. And I ate that and I stopped for a minute and said, okay, I'm ready to get a hunting license because I think we should have a lot more ducks. So I thought at the time that a lot more ducks, like maybe we would have 12 or 15 ducks a year. Then I found out it's actually easy and fun. Well, it's not always easy. And sometimes it's challenging, but if you really put your mind to it, you can be really successful with ducks, which is great because it's still my very favorite game meat to eat. I'll eat any game meat, and I eat almost nothing but game meat at home. But duck is always the best. It's always my go-to. Always my favorite.
But you were never really into it prior to coming out here, like in
Not
terms
at
of like
all.
going out as a participant.
No, and I never went along with him. I was training for a marathon at the time. It's like, I'm not going to get up early and run on a Saturday and then go hunt with you on a Sunday or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I got to have some time to sleep in. So, yeah, I always thought hunters were kind of weird and sick, that you would think it's fun to go out and kill animals. I didn't get it because I didn't know any hunters. When I was a reporter in Virginia, I covered the state legislature there. And a couple of the senators were hunters, and I got to know them because one was a senator that I covered, and it's like, well, he's not evil, he doesn't have horns, and so maybe this hunting thing isn't quite so weird. And then I got to know it. Like, that to me is one of the greatest joys of learning to hunt as an adult, is like you launch into this world and everything's new, and your brain is fully formed so you can absorb it and enjoy the discovery. And I really enjoyed the people I met and the great sense of commonality you have with everyone, because it doesn't matter how different we are. It doesn't matter who you vote for, how you were raised, whether you went to school, where you went to school, how advanced your degree was. None of that matters, because if you're a duck hunter, all that matters is your hunting. And when we're all out at the refuges and everyone's wearing camo, everyone looks the same anyway. So you don't know. Like, the guy you're talking to could be a high school dropout, or he could be a guy who owns his own very successful company.
Yeah.
Although that guy probably has a club, but some of them still hunt at the refuges.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I really like the variety of people, and it really teaches you to stop assuming you know about people. So I was 41 when I started. I was really late in life to start, but it made it super fun. Just fell in love with it instantly.
Like, were you more interested in like other things too at the time? Like, oh, now we need to go get some venison and we need to go get some this and that. Or was it just so focused on the waterfowl aspect?
I was super focused on ducks, and I have tried all kinds of hunting. And every year I tell myself I'm going to put in some effort for big game. But, about when big game comes around, well, okay, we start September with dove season, and then D3-5 opens for deer in, late September. But about that time, mountain quail's going, and I don't want to miss out on that. And you got to hunt the mountain quail before the deer hunters get out there, because they make everything all messed up. And then, everything, there's always a bird hunt I would rather be on. So I do have one opportunity to hunt pigs this fall, so I'm going to try and go get myself a pig. So I have some things besides birds in the freezer, but for the longest time, I felt like I should be a well-rounded hunter. And I've hunted some things. I've gotten one deer. I've gotten a bear. That was exciting. And several pigs.
Did you like the bear meat?
I loved it.
I've heard like so different on that. Like, either people like absolutely love it, or they're
I think
like,
it all goes
we do
back to the classic
sausage
preparation.
And,
It's preparation. It's also what have they been eating.
Yeah, true, very true.
And this bear, I shot her it was, I think, December 11th or 12th that year in 2012. And they were already in semi-hibernation at that point. So they don't truly hibernate the way the far northern bears do. So every once in a while they get up and walk around, and that was their mistake. This was one of the last 100 bears killed over hounds in California. So we saw her track, and the dogs got on her, and then I ended up getting her. And because even though she was getting up and walking around, once they're in that semi-hibernation state, they don't eat anything. And that's really good for cleansing the meat. So the meat was very, very clean, and the fat was very, very clean.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think if you're getting a bear in a coastal region where they're eating not only are they eating fish, but they're eating, like the salmon when they're really nasty looking and kind of really stinky. Like, no one wants to eat a bear that's been eating that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one was just fantastic. We had that fat in our freezer for 4 years, used it all the time.
You prefer the fat of a bear or the fat of a duck?
Duck. Duck.
That was a great question.
The bear fat was good, and the bear meat is really good too. Like if you've never tasted bear and I gave you some bear, you would know it was different. And you'd probably guess it was bear because it has this density that's like pork, but it doesn't taste like pork and it doesn't taste like venison.
I've had it once.
Yeah, it's really different. It's substantial.
I wasn't opposed to it at all. I ate it and was like, I'd have no qualm shooting a bear. It tasted fine to me.
Yeah, the only thing about bears is you can pretty much assume they have trichinosis. You should assume they have trichinosis. So you have to not be careless in your preparation because trichinosis is forever.
Hit 165.
No. Oh, gosh, don't hit 165.
Is it 165 kills trichinosis?
No, 165 is what some government agencies tell you have to do because it covers your tail because it kills absolutely everything, including the flavor of your meat.
Yeah, it's hard when it goes up.
So I believe with trichinosis, there's a really good guide on the website to this. And if you want it, I'll share a link with you afterwards. But I believe the meat has to reach 145 degrees and stay that way for 15 minutes.
Oh, interesting.
If you like sous vide cooking,
You can get it to
the thing about sous
145
vide
and
is you
leave it.
could hold it up at this temperature forever.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
So sous vide is a really good way to do that. And then what you do is take it out and brown it so you have the nice browning because just sous vide meat is kind of boring.
Can you explain the whole sous vide to the people that don't know that?
Oh gosh, I've never actually done it, so this is really just in theory for me. But sous vide is cooking underwater, and you put your meat in a plastic bag and you submerge it in a tank that's designed for sous vide cooking, or you put it in some sort of container and you use this immersion sous vide thing.
It's a water bath.
Yes, it's a water bath. It's a water bath that cleanses the trichinosis.
Yeah.
So
Did you
can
do that
enjoy
with
the
your
bear.
pastrami? Is that how you do your pastrami?
No, I didn't do that with pastrami. The new I got a new oven in my house, and ovens can apparently sous vide without
What?
the water somehow.
What?
Like, yeah, I haven't figured out the whole technique, but it says it can sous vide. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool.
That's really weird.
So I got to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So yeah, that's if I get a bear again, and I keep threatening
good
to go
idea,
bear
yeah.
hunting, that I have a sous vide machine. It's sitting in the garage, and that's pretty much the only thing I would use it for. Because everything else, I like pan frying it and getting nice, crispy brown.
Yep.
Now you're getting me hungry.
I know. Sorry about that.
So you're a writer. You get into hunting, and then you kind of just go off on your own journey in the outdoor space. Tell us kind
Yeah.
of where you ended up with that.
Well, a year after I started hunting, I was teaching at Sac State at the time. I was teaching journalism. So I'd left newspapers and had gone into teaching. I was the advisor to the student newspaper. And one day I was experimenting with the blogger program website, really, because I was trying to come up with ways to help my students create websites. And so I experimented with it. And it's like, this is really easy. I should start a blog. So I started a blog about hunting, and I thought no one would want to hear what I had to say because I didn't know what the hell I was doing yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really bad. I am not a natural. I was not naturally a good shot. And it turns out, first I wrote about women's stuff, but you can only go so far with that. So then I started writing about my experience as a new, really bad hunter. People love it because who doesn't love reliving your experiences of all the hard lessons you learned? I mean, I love it. It's one of the things I love about mentoring new hunters is I get to relive it as they go through that experience of like trying to figure it out, and then bam, they got it. Yeah.
What is your most vivid memory of trying to figure it out yourself and a failure?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Thanks for bringing me down, Jeff.
I've got tons. I mean,
what's the hardest one? I mean, there were just some days where I spent a lot of time hunting at Delavan Grand Central. I haven't hunted there in a while. And in Grand Central, there's a lot of hunters and there's a lot of birds. And if you're good at it, if you persist, you can do well. And so I got to the point where I really worked hard that year and I would get limits almost every time out. But there's some days it was like 50 shells to get a limit. And, Here's the one I still struggle with. Like, I'm a refuge hunter, so I like crossing shots. I'm really good at crossing shots, and I'm like, the most horrible shot for me is a bird coming straight at me, dropping into my decoys. It confuses me. It's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be like trying to get away from me or something. So I have lots of really great memories of shooting at a landing bird and emptying my gun and completely missing.
Yeah.
And I think at the time it felt so horrible. I felt so, I don't know, like I felt like I was never going to be good at it, and it was really hard. And
these were the experiences you were sharing on your blog at that time?
Yeah. And then eventually I got good at it, and I switched to a 12 gauge, and that helped for a while, and practicing my shooting off season helped more. And then it just all started falling into place, and now I just don't stress about it. Sometimes I have bad days where
Everybody does.
I can't hit.
Yep.
Get the yips.
I hunted as a guest at a nice Butte St. Club a few years back, and it was just one of those days. Oh, it hurts so bad to remember it. It was one of those days the mallards were coming right in, and they were coming in my left to right crossing shot, which is my favorite thing. And so they were coming right past the blind. They were right in front of me. They were probably 15-yard shots, and I think I missed 8 greenheads in a row. Like, what is wrong with me? Now, the first time I hunted with that gentleman, I was amazing. I got 6 birds with, I think, 8 shots, and the only reason I didn't get a limit is because I fell in the water fetching a bird, and I hunted until hypothermia was going to set in, and it's like, okay, I'm done now, I give. But he knew I could shoot, but boy, I sure couldn't shoot that day. And man, I think the lesson I learned, and it took hunting to teach me this, I never got it in any other aspect of life, is don't get in your head. Let go.
Yeah.
Let go. Don't get down on yourself.
That's what causes bad shooting. You make one
Yeah.
mistake. I always tell people, and you've mentored people, and the hardest thing is when you have that brand new shooter who's never shot before, and they're watching that sporting clay or that clay come at them, and they're sitting there thinking about it, and they're thinking about their lead, and they're thinking about their mount, and they're thinking about, and it's almost like you want to just turn them around and then turn them back and be like, there it is, shoot it, and just have instinct take over, because the more you think about it, the worse you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although, here's what I learned, and one of the other reasons I love mentoring new people is because I was such a bad shot, and I have some things that make shooting challenging for me. My neck is ridiculously long, and that makes it hard to get the head down on the shotgun. Everyone says, you should bring the shotgun to your cheek and pull it back. It's like, no, I have a giraffe neck. I have to sit here and settle it down. It's ridiculous. I'm also cross-dominant, so I'm right-handed and left-eye dominant. Really easy if you've never shot a shotgun before to shoot left-handed because you don't think about it. You're just like, I don't know, this all feels weird to me. But being cross-dominant I'm left-eye dominant, but my right eye kicks in, so sometimes my vision kind of flips like that a little bit. So I feel like that made things harder. At least that's my excuse. I really like that as an excuse.
It's
So
a
we'll
valid
just stop
one.
right there. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was also why I was bad in sports.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I'll take it.
Well, it doesn't count for track, but
But you shoot a righty gun with the safety switch, or did you go
no,
full
I
lefty?
flip it. No, I get right-handed guns and I switch the cast.
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, your shotgun, the stock bends one way or another. It's very slight, but for exaggeration, I'll say the stock comes bending this way so you can get your eye over it, and then you switch it so that it bends this way. And then I also flip the safety.
Gotcha.
I load the gun right-handed, so it all feels normal to me.
Yeah.
People will say, oh, don't you mind that the shell ejects in front of
Across your
your face?
face, yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I'm looking at the bird.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at the shell ejecting, then I have missed the bird.
Mm-hmm.
So
This is very true. Well, it's like, you take a brand new shooter out and they're like, so focused on the recoil of the gun. You're like, just look at the target and see the target burst.
Yeah.
And you won't even feel.
Or they're so
Yeah.
focused on trying to like line up the bead with the target. It's like, all right, no. Let's take a step back.
it's hard, though, because I remember so vividly when, my instructor, I had a lesson when I started shotgun shooting, and that was really a smart thing to do. My instructor gave me a really, really good first lesson because it was skeet, and so he took me all the way around the field, and he explained lead to me. So I only had to work at it for 5 years to actually master how that felt. But if you, oh man, I completely lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. It helps to have that basis, but you also have to spend a lot of time practicing to get the hang of what that lead feels like. And some people it takes longer than others. I took my nephew out shooting once. He'd never shot a shotgun at a moving target before. And I take him out to shoot skeet, and he shoots as well as I does. And it's like, I hate you. I absolutely hate you for this. This is really embarrassing. So what you kind of have to understand is that some newbies are going to be the naturals who get it and who do really well. And some newbies are going to be terrible. What I like about mentoring newbies is if you're one of the terrible ones, I can help you feel better about yourself. I can tell you that this is going to get better. You have to practice, but it will get better. Because if I can do it, if I can shoot and hit things, if I can drop birds on the first shot, that means anyone can do it. Because I have no natural talent for it at all. Just a lot of desire.
Yeah. Well, to speak to the newbies, I've always thought you've done a phenomenal job of mentoring people. And when you do take them out, like you stay with them throughout their whole journey. Like it seems like keeping up with them and talking to people, where Carson and we might take someone out on their first hunt and I may or may not ever see that person or talk to them again, where you've really acted as a mentor for a lot of people. Was that always something like was a passion of yours about, or just kind of like stumbled on it and people were just asking, you're like, oh, I'll take you?
It kind of just happened, and mostly, gosh, I see this with a lot of people who started hunting as adults like I did. It's so hard when you don't come from the background, when you weren't raised hearing the things and hearing the stories and understanding all this stuff. There's so much stuff to master that I just immediately wanted to help other people do it. Because like this is really difficult to do, and there's so much stuff you need to acquire. So I just started trying to help people, and then I came to work for CWA, and we had all these programs, so I started volunteering for the programs, and I've created some hunts independently that are new for new hunters, and sometimes I just spend time with new hunters in any given season. And what happens is I will meet someone who wants to hunt, and I will put out the offer. I said, if you want to learn how to hunt, I am happy to help you because I enjoy doing it. I enjoy it. And folks out there, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. I have some friends who'd be like, I don't know how you have the patience. Well, don't do it.
Yeah.
Donate money to someone who does. You don't have to do it if you don't enjoy it. But for me, watching their discovery and watching their learning process and maybe saying something that helps something click for them, it's just such a rush.
Yeah.
So yes, I will seek people out and I will say, hey, if you want to do this, let me know. And then it's up to them. And this is sort of where people separate themselves out. Is this idle talk? Oh, I'd like to hunt someday. Or is this like, no, I want to hunt. I'm going to hunt.
Yeah.
And so the people who seek me out are the ones I will end up hunting with. And I say, you have to ask me because I am always going to default to hunting by myself or with close friends where it's easier because it's a lot easier hunting alone.
Yeah.
Or hunting with a friend.
I find it the same way. I find it so much easier for me if somebody is showing the passion and the initiative to go out and ask me or to be like, hey, can I come along? Then me be like, hey, you should come along. It's like, well, maybe. It's like, hey, that's not the person I want to bring out.
No one has time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time to beg you to hunt. Do you want it or not? If you want it, I'll help you. Mm-hmm. And not only will I help you, but I think it's really important for new hunters to have a whole network. And mentors can facilitate this, and the new hunters can do it themselves. So I always tell people, you need several people. So when I encounter a new hunter, I introduce them to a couple of my friends who also like helping new hunters. And I say, look, now you've got Lotto buddies for the refuge. You've got other people you can email. So if you're texting me with some crisis question about your hunting license at 10 at night and I'm not answering, you can text the other person. So you create this network for them where it helps them out. And the guy who I'm hoping to hunt with more this year, I started with him a little bit last year, and I met him at a pheasant hunt, and his first hunt, he's one of those people who drives me crazy. We shot some trap before the hunt, and it was his first time shooting his shotgun. He breaks out. He put it together. He didn't bring it in the box, so it's like good on you for that because no one wants to see something in a box still. Like we want you to be familiar with it. He pulls it out, and he goes up to the station and says pull, and someone fires the clay, and he smashes it. And I think he just smashed almost every clay that was pulled for him that day. And it's like, oh, God, I hate you. I shouldn't say that, I know, but I'm just so jealous. Oh, it's so easy. So then we took him out of the field, and it's like, all right, here's the test. So he gets out in the field, dog gets on a pheasant, he sits there and he gets ready, pre-mounts the gun because like that's advisable in a situation like that. pheasant flies, nails it first shot. I'm like, wow, you are really good.
Yep.
So I said, okay, I'd be happy to hunt with you. I observed his gun handling skills, and his gun handling skills were really good. And so I'm like, I'd be happy to hunt with you. So we came to the second weekend of season last year, and he texted me, and he's like, I'm going to go to Grizzly Island. Do you have any tips for me? And he had never hunted ducks yet. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no. Don't do that. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to go with you because there's no way you can go by yourself. And we did. And then he quickly saw why there's no way he could have done it by himself. Because like we walked out into a place, we walked through a bunch of dry land, and then we walked out into some water, and he had no idea where we were going. And we were walking to a very specific place, and we were walking through all this tangled stuff. And like, my fear with the new hunters, who's especially someone who's a good shot, if you're a terrible shot, you ain't gonna do no harm out there. I was a terrible shot. I hunted alone a lot my first year. I did no harm to any ducks that year. I killed 3 ducks that year. It was terrible. But he was so good. It's like, oh boy, he could take down a cormorant or a swan or all kinds of things.
He shoots, he's gonna hit.
Especially out there.
Yeah, exactly. So I went out with him, and it was super fun. And I thought, okay, new hunter, I'm going to have some stuff for him. I'm going to have a duck strap in case he needs it. And I had a couple of things, a chair. I bought a chair in case he needed a chair. And we met each other. He's like, no, I got all that stuff. It's like, whoa, you are into it.
That's cool.
He had studied it. He studied all the forums. He really studied it. So I love the guy. He's super fun to hunt with. He's just a really cool person in general. And yeah, so I've hooked him up with other friends, and he's seen ducks. So that day we went out, we saw some ducks. We saw some ducks in range. He wasn't able to get any. We were hunting at Grizzly. We were hunting in one of those pickleweed palaces where you got no cover, nothing to hide in whatsoever. And it's hard. And it was his first time hunting in a marsh, and we had to deal with not having a blind and not having good footing. So he didn't get birds, but he saw what ducks look like. He saw what they look like when they're coming in. He could commit to memory what they look like when they're close enough to stand up and take the shot. So I would have total confidence in him going out alone now. But I still want to go out with him because you just learn more faster. You can do it by yourself if you're industrious and you study and you're, very careful about the risks with bird identification. But it's just so much easier if someone can say, oh, no, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't walk there. That's a closed zone. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I think that's where a lot of people might want to go duck hunting, but there's so much that goes into it with the regulations, where to hunt, what you can bring, etc.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It can get pretty daunting pretty quick.
It's crazy complicated.
Yes.
So some of the info, which we have in front of you that you produced, how did you go from mentoring or your background to now what we have in front of us, which is a whole infographic on duck harvest, species harvest, areas of the state, refuges of the state, highs, lows, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so when I was a newspaper reporter, I did a lot of work with data. So I covered politics and campaigns and legislation. And with campaigns especially, you have campaign finance, and there's detailed reports that come out. I also covered state budgets, big spreadsheets. And I really loved working with numbers. It was super fun. And when I came into this world and started working for California Waterfowl, that was really the first inkling I had how much incredible data there is out there. And so, you guys see it as hunters when you look at refuge stats that are provided in the waterfowl newsletter that DFW sends out every year that has all the details. And they've got some average information on the website and Resi stats and stuff like that.
Very basic, very basic, rudimentary.
I take that same data and I go to town with it because it's super fun. And it takes a lot of work because I like doing analysis that looks at regions, like how do various regions perform, and also how do various times of year perform. And I got really interested in time of year comparisons because I had noticed over the past few years that it felt like, it used to be come December 1st, the ducks were here, and then they're getting here later. And it's like, well, maybe mid-December, and then, well, maybe late December. And then there was last year where they just kind of
never showed up.
Yeah, kind of never. And what I saw in the data is they actually arrived in Northeastern, like the last weekend of season in Northeastern. And I wasn't able to hunt at the end of season last year, so I didn't personally experience it, but my friend said, nah, it's still pretty terrible out there. So yeah, they never quite made it all the way down. So when you can look at the data and break it down into chunks like for this piece that I did for CWA, I broke it down into half-month periods. So the 1st through the 15th and the 16th through whatever the last day of the month is. And it's kind of interesting to look at the rhythm of the season. And I don't know about you guys. I guess there's a couple different schools of thought. Tell me this. Do you keep track of your duck harvest each year?
I have since 2012.
And how do you do it? What do you do?
Write it down in a paper-bound book. Every single hunt I've hunted on
Wow.
since 2012.
Wow.
Who I was with, the weather that day, where I
Uh-huh.
was, birds harvested.
Yeah, okay.
One of the few.
All right, Jeff, what about you?
I really tried to do that, and I had a little cool journal and leather bound, the whole 9, and did not keep up with it. Did it for like one season.
Wow.
I had some of the federal survey stuff for wings and all that, so I kept pretty good tabs of that. But no, I've not been good at it. But last year, pretty accurate, but not
Okay.
like every single hunt that I'm on. But I would say
Yeah.
it was like 80% of them.
Okay, well, apparently I'm a real data nerd, and I'll just tell you a fun family story. When my grandmother passed away a long time ago, and we were going through her stuff, Grandma also really liked data, but Grandma lived in the olden days when people used paper and typewriters and things like that. When they were going through her things, they found a journal in which she had tracked and charted her weight every day for 40 years.
No way.
I'm like, oh, I come by it honestly, Grandma. I love you.
That's
I'm
crazy.
I am totally
Wow.
that person. And I, when I was training for marathons, I kept detailed stats on, my training. And for marathons, you need to keep track of where you're running and how you're running. There's a very set protocol for preparing for a marathon. It's not rocket science, if even I could do it, because I'm not a good runner. But yeah, so I love keeping data like that. And my first year, I didn't keep track of my harvest because it was only 3 birds.
'Cause you
wasn't that
remember
hard
that.
to remember. I wish I had
What
tracked
kind
them.
of ducks are we talking about here?
Young Drake Widgeon was the first, and then I went months without killing anything. And then toward the end of the season, in one hunt, I got 2 birds.
Oh man.
I know, right? It was amazing. I got a cinnamon teal, and then this is also at Delavan. I got a cinnamon teal, and there was a guy at another tule patch near us who had shot a snow goose. So he shot it and he winged it, and the thing's like grinding down in our direction. So my hunting partner shot at it, and he hit it, but he didn't drop it. And then it came in front of me, and by God, I shot that bird, and I tumbled like it was a good shot. And now, if I did that, I would pick up that bird and walk back to that
And give
first
it to the other
guy.
guy,
Like, you
yeah.
shot it, but I'm just like, woo, woo. I'm like, I'm taking this because I'm the one who dropped it.
I love it.
So yeah, things would be a little bit different now. But yeah, I remember that. I don't. It was so funny. The check station staff at Delavan, they were so nice. They'd always try and get me to a good pond, and they would always try to help me, and they'd say, "Do you see any ducks?" When I checked in, I'd say, "Yeah." They said, "Did you shoot your gun?" I said, "Yeah, I shot a whole box of shells." Did you get any? No. They were so sweet, though. That's the thing about check station staff, which I always tell the newbies, is they want you to succeed. If you ask questions and you're polite,
Correct.
Yeah.
which they
Yep.
don't get enough of in both cases, if you do those things, they really want to help you. So
In your findings that you had, because this is last year's data, correct?
Yeah,
23, 24. Is there anything that stuck out to you?
aside from how bad it was, well, and I just wanted confirmation to feel better about my own season. Really, that's all of it is, like, how can I feel about my own season? It all comes back to me.
So as far as data wise, say somebody who's listening that didn't hunt in California, what can you tell us that was so bad?
The average was way down for the state. And what I do, for anyone who hasn't seen this data, is I take all the harvest stats from type A and B wildlife areas and national wildlife refuges in California. They have detailed stats on species and day, and they actually keep wind direction stuff in there too. So I took all those stats and crunched them, and it was let's see, I have to look and remind myself here. It was Wasn't the lowest average ever. It was the 4th lowest average ever. And when I say ever, I mean data. The data goes back to 1987. That's when this data set.
So 4th lowest in almost 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really, really bad. So let's see, actually 36 years, 37 years inclusive. Yeah. So it was the 4th lowest. It was the lowest 1-year percentage drop because just the year before
Highest ever.
Was a banger.
we had an amazing year. But, another interesting thing, part of what made the year before so amazing is we killed a lot of spoonies. It was the spooniest year we had ever had. They were a huge part of our harvest. And I think last year, compared with the previous year, the spoonie harvest dropped 58%. And
Which
I remember
wild
this
to see that.
Right. I remember being out there and it's like, I would so happily kill spoonies today, but even the spoonies aren't there.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was brutal. Not gonna lie, I shot a few coots. And one of the things I looked at in the data to see if it was an unusually big coot year, if as many people were as frustrated as I was, because I knew, like at YOLO, for example, some hunters were making it their personal mission to try and make coot the #1 bird on any given day. They never quite made it, and the coot harvest wasn't that great, so I guess it was just me.
Oh, gosh.
The breasts and the gizzards make good sausage, guys.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, don't hate on the coots.
I've had some coot, and I'm not going to bang on it, but I couldn't do it. Couldn't go out there and
When there's nothing
bring
else
it.
to shoot.
I know.
I mean,
know.
if it's a good day, do you want to waste your shells on coots when you can only take 25
Shells
shells
are
out?
expensive.
Shells are
Yeah,
expensive.
they only
Take 'em
get
all.
more expensive.
And you can only take 25 out. So
Yeah.
do you want to sit there trying to get your 25 coots, or do you want to shoot use some nice fat widgeon and pintail
Yeah.
and mallards and just some delicious little teal?
Jeff, is there anything that you see that surprises you on that?
Well, I think it just confirms what everyone was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, birds or no birds. Yeah, I think a lot of the weather had to do with it, where you had the previous year, you had a drought. So if you had water early on, it was great. And then we had back-to-back storms, which confuses birds, and hunting's good. And then the season basically ended. So you have like the highest bird total,
Yeah.
which was awesome. And then you come to last year and you have super warm every single day.
Everybody has
And
water.
Everyone has water. There's
Gray dome a lot of the days.
rice everywhere, gray dome, and there's no reason for the birds to move. And with there's no reason for them to double feed or anything like that. So they go out and feed at night, go back and rest all day, and then repeat every single day. And that's kind of what I saw on the landscape, and it just kind of goes to that. But it's crazy to think of the 4th lowest, but the year prior was the biggest
Right.
waterfowl harvest that we've had.
Yeah, how do you change that much? That's
Well,
crazy.
I mean, if they're not here, they're not here. And here's what I was experiencing. There were some days where my friends would go out and be like, I got a limit today. And it's like, I had another horrible hunt today. And it seemed that what was going on, and I could not show this in the data. I mean, I probably could if I wanted to spend all year at it, but it seemed like there's very few birds around. And if you're in the spot where they wanted to be that day, then you're going to get your birds and you have a chance of getting a limit. And you might be like, this is great. This feels like a normal day. But the
Yeah.
normal days were so
Yeah.
sporadic.
we saw that
Inconsistent.
at our
Yeah.
rice club where like I would go out and I would shoot a limit, but I might shoot 9 shells. And then my buddy might go out the next day and have 2 opportunities at 2 pairs, which would be 4 birds if he made both of them and he missed and it was a bad day. So it's like you made your shots count. You could have a good day, but there was like no extended flight. You had to make the most of your opportunities. If you didn't, you were singing the blues.
Yeah, if you had
Yeah.
1 guy or 4 guys, you're shooting probably the same
Same amount of ducks. Yep.
Oh, man.
But also last year, we have higher hunter numbers. Right?
Yes. Yep.
Which also, there's more people hunting, and we have less waterfowl taken.
Yes. So that's what
interesting.
makes the average is the function of the number of hunters and the number of birds they take. And the year before, hunter numbers had been kind of low.
Yeah.
So that also affects it. And if you look at the data, the overall trend is that averages, trend line, big trend line, averages are increasing. So we actually have pretty good hunting. But you also look at what's in the mix of birds. 20 years ago, it was a lot more mallards.
Yes,
and
quality
now it's a lot more
decreasing.
spoonies. Right, exactly. And I'm not a total spoonie snob. I'm looking at one right now, just hanging there off your wall. That's fantastic.
Beautiful specimen.
But I think to me, spoonie fat is gross, and so I can't eat the legs because it's got a lot of fat in between all the
Are
muscles.
you saying you're cooed over Spoonie right now?
You know what? The breast size is about the same, and the gizzards are much bigger on coots, and gizzard meat is good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. There
Heard
it
it
is.
here.
There you
Hot
have it.
take.
But where have you seen, and you may or may not have found this, where have you seen the trend where it was like 20 years ago, primarily mallards, and then like where does the Spoonie increase of harvest?
Where does it meet and bypass?
So I think part of that is filling in your strap. Like if you used to fill it with, maybe we had the same number of spoonies all along, but now you're more willing to shoot them because you want to shoot something when you're out on a bad day. But the mallard harvest in California is very, very predictable. It tracks the California breeding population of mallards. So if you look at the two things on a chart, they go like this. They move together. And there's some blips where they move apart. There's sometimes where, after a flood year, after a big flood year, the breeding population counts will be low because they count the population by flying over the same place every year to get consistent
there's
data.
all this new
And if
water.
the ducks are spread out, then it looks like the breeding population is low. So you get those blips, but overall, you look at the overall trend, and it absolutely tracks with the breeding population. And that was actually the brightest spot of last year's data, is that our mallard harvest was up substantially. It looked really good, and it was up pretty much exactly the same amount as the mallard breeding population.
Oh, interesting.
Mallards didn't have to migrate here. They were here. They were
Yeah.
born here. They hatched here. Biologists are going to correct me on that. They're not born, they're hatched. But yeah, so the mallard harvest was actually pretty good, and that was a bright spot. Specs were also higher. I cannot explain that at all. I don't understand. All I know is that those two were the only species that increased. Everything else in raw numbers decreased.
Snow's same.
Snow's decreased,
Interesting.
which is
see the-
hard to fathom because there's so freaking many of
I wonder
them.
if they're getting off the refuges and getting into farmers' fields and stuff, getting killed there, not getting counted in the.
Yeah, I mean, I could
that
see
sort of
the
thing.
goose thing. Well, all this is public, but I mean, on private, geese go out every day and they
Yeah.
come back. Where ducks, they'll just sit all day,
Yeah.
aren't bumped. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where
Right.
Geese are a little bit more predictable, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So there was one other interesting thing in the data, and I've done this piece, now maybe 6 or 7 years. So I've looked at quite a bit, and every time I look at it, I look all the way back in the data. And one thing has stood out really clearly. Now, if you divide the state up by regions, Sassoon as a region tends to have lower averages than the rest of the state. It does not have as high averages. So I'm not saying that to denigrate Sassoon, that's just what the numbers say. In a drought year, it's not like it goes up spectacularly, but Sassoon stays really stable and produces about the same number of birds in harvest, or the same averages, while everything else is going down. So I've seen that several times now in the data, that Sassoon in a drought is a good place to be. Why? Because Sassoon has water.
Yeah.
It's an estuary. It comes with water. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And then what we saw last year is that Sassoon also stayed pretty well within its averages for the year. So in a year when many of the ducks did not get here during season, when they stayed up north way later than usual, Sassoon for some reason was still really good. And I can't explain that. All I can say is go Sassoon.
Yeah.
Go Sassoon. All
It's
you
consistent.
naysayers.
It's consistent.
Yes,
We look at
yes.
Grizzly Ranch numbers and the bird average. We'll have high years in harvest, but for the most part, the average pretty much stays pretty consistent across the board since we've owned it. Where if it's youth hunts or whatever, it's our most consistent property. Because some of our other properties might be like 3.5, 4 bird average, and
Well,
then like boom.
People
come
will
way down.
reach out and be like, "Oh, I got drawn for Sanborn Slough in November, but I also got drawn for Grizzly." And I'm like, honestly, you probably have a better chance at killing ducks at Grizzly. I said they might not be the higher quality, but you'll probably shoot more of them at Grizzly in November than you're going to shoot at Sanborn Slough in November. Like, it's just how it is. We just hold more birds there, and I think that kind of goes to say with the whole Sassoon thing in general, as compared to the Butte Sink and a lot of the rice up in that area and the Cluse area.
Yeah, it's stable.
Yeah.
It's really stable and dependable. And if I had money to drop on a club right now, I'd probably drop it in Sassoon.
You don't have
Just
to pay for
looking-
water, so that helps.
Also that. And, Sassoon is a hard place to hunt, because you got to wipe down your gun really well after every hunt. And if your mojo falls in the water, it's going to be rusting before you get back to your car. I mean, the brackish water is really challenging. But I've hunted a lot more in Sassoon over the past couple of years, and it's really fun to explore. And then let's say Sassoon, there's many little refuges there, but mostly we're talking Grizzly Island, which is a big refuge. And it's a really fun place to explore, and it's not super pressured. And I really value that a lot. The more I hunt, the more I realize how important it is to not pressure your hunting lands too hard. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not one of those refuges where you've got people pouring through constantly all day long, and it's, hunters within 60 yards of each other. And I mean, that can be fun when it's a good day. Yeah. But it's stressful, and it's stressful for the birds too.
It seems like they have a core group of people that's where they hunt, and like that's all they do is hunt grizzly, and they're successful. But I'm with you in terms of getting older. I don't want the crowds, and I don't want the hustle and bustle.
We've moved to the rice.
Yeah. Sold soul.
Yeah, sold our souls. 100%.
Oh man.
Couldn't do the rat race anymore. That feeling in the bottom of your stomach when you're going out, is somebody going to be in my spot? Is somebody going to be in my spot? I just couldn't deal with that.
It's the hardest thing. Man, it's really hard. Like, I'm already stressing out about Sunday.
Yep.
So we're recording this on the 24th. So the opener is coming up, and my friend has a resi, and she's never hunted this place, and it's like, oh, pressure's
that's
on.
big stress. That's big time stress.
I gotta come through for it. It's like, well, I know some places where it didn't suck last year, so let's try those.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your predictions for this season? What do you think?
I am afraid to hope. Like, I'm afraid to have my hopes dashed. However, it's already cold. I just got a text from a friend who said his buddy's up in Northeastern right now, and it's in the teens. It's like, what? I like that. That's good. That makes them come down here. That was like the big shock last year, is that ducks don't come to the Central Valley just for, our charm and culture, that they actually have to be pushed down. So I'm optimistic that we might have a more normal year. And if we're having a normal year, every hunt could be the best hunt of your life. Every single one.
You never know which
if it's
one.
a normal year. Last year I gave up on any hunt being the best hunt of my life. That's not true. I always, every day I think it could be the day.
It's going to turn. I heard some good reports. It's like, no.
I'm going to be in the spot, like one of those spots where you ever get in one of those spots where the widgeon really want to be there, and no matter how much you're shooting, they just keep coming.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love widgeon.
I love widgeon.
They're delicious, and I love it when they do that. It's amazing.
Especially late, they're on that big old white, huge rice fat. Yummy, yummy, yummy.
Oh, God, they're so good.
So what are you most excited about this waterfowl season?
Truth be told, I am most excited about the next waterfowl season, because after 18 years, I am finally getting a dog.
Uh-oh.
I'm getting a dog.
What kind of dog are you getting?
I'm getting a poodle pointer.
Poodle pointer.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're cool dogs. The reason I'm getting a poodle pointer, well, one, I hunted Mearns quail over a poodle pointer in Arizona one year, and it was really fun. And the guy's like, yeah, they can hunt waterfowl too. And I'm like, what? I want that. And last year kind of convinced me, actually, because there were many times last year when the hunting was really bad that if I had had a dog, I could have gone out and chased pheasant or quail.
Yeah.
And I hunt ducks without a dog just fine. I hunt refuges where I walk in. Like, if I'm careful where I drop them, if I don't drop them in tules or over canals, I can fetch my own ducks, and it keeps me in shape. It burns calories. But upland hunting, you can also upland hunt without a dog if you enjoy minimal success.
I was going to say, you enjoy walking around aimlessly hoping to kick up a pheasant.
Right. Well, I did well on
noise.
mountain quail opener this year because I spent my whole summer hiking in the mountains, so I identified where some coveys were.
Yeah.
And where they were this summer is where they were on opening day. And they were disappointed in my change of behavior. I can tell you that. They did not like that.
So are you going to train the dog yourself? Trainer? What's the plan?
I was convinced that I was incapable of training dogs because I come from a long line of a family that has dogs that are really poorly behaved and untrained. So I thought I was maybe genetically incapable of training a dog. But the friend who inspired me to get a poodle pointer, he's like, I told him how much some of the people charge who I was looking at for training. And he's like, Holly, if you're going to spend that much to get training, give that money to me and I'll train the dog. But don't give the money to me. Just train the dog yourself. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So he recommended a series of books, actually. So I've been reading these books and studying them. And now I'm at that really obnoxious stage where I'm convinced I know everything and my dog is going to be perfect. I know I'm going to have a comeuppance. I know, because I know it's not going to be
You're
perfect.
getting from the puppy stage all the way. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like we're going to get home and training's going to begin.
Yep.
And it's going to be fun. I'm super excited. It's daunting in many ways, but I'm really excited at how it can expand my hunting. In a way, it makes duck hunting harder because right now I walk out into the marsh with a pack frame with my stuff on it, and I don't need to carry a stand for a dog, so I can hunt in open water, and it's not a problem. So I know it limits that. I know if you're hunting with friends who have dogs, then you've got to negotiate that whole "we've got 2 dogs here" thing. So I know there's changes for that, but it also just gives me a lot more ability to travel. And, there are some places I would love to hunt where I know there's really deep water, and I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't hunt anything with deep water, but with a pup, I can go to those places. So, looking at getting a dog in the spring, I'm in touch with 4 breeders and start training. And I think if I don't get the dog too late, I should be able to take her on waterfowl hunts. It's going to be obviously very early stage, very rudimentary stuff. But every hunt I've done, like all the upland, all the quail hunts that I've done, quail and grouse hunting up in the mountains, like every time I go out this year, I'm thinking about what it's going to be like with my new little partner. So I know this duck season, I'm going to be envisioning every hunt with my little partner too.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And and I apologize to all my friends in advance for how obnoxious I'm going to be about my dog. They'll like the puppy pictures though. Everyone likes puppy pictures.
Yeah.
No, it's a fun element. I mean, it is what it is. It's like having a little kid, right?
So
you
you've
just
got a
start off from
1.5-year-old puppy right now.
Yeah.
Mine's now 6.5. It seems like he was just a puppy a while ago, but we both did from puppies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm super invested in this one. I'm 59, so I look at it like, how long am I going to be hunting? And I probably have like 3 dogs in me, depending on how I phase them in. So I got to do it right. I don't have time to have a practice dog.
Yeah.
No pressure or anything, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just starting early and starting those small little habits, and treats help, and just not letting it control you for the most part. And
that's going to be hard. My cats completely control me.
Well, I mean, like our dogs are family dogs first, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, there's some people's dogs who are like jumping all over the couch and they're this and that, and it's just trying to curb that early. I think goes a long ways, But
That's what the book says. So like I said, I'm confident I'm just going to be perfect about this.
Yeah.
I'm really not.
how do the cats like the idea?
Well, that's why I'm getting a pup, actually, because poodle pointers, they're not one of the most notorious cat killers or anything, but many of those breeds are cat eaters. So it'd be so much easier to get a started dog.
Yeah.
But everyone said, no, if you've got cats, you got to bring it home as a pup so my cats can slap her around a little bit and be like,
get the pecking order going.
This is our house.
yeah, this is our house. You are only a guest. And so the cats are going to be really pissed. I have about 6 months to think about managing their sadness. So they still get the full run of the house. The dog will not get run of the house. So they get that privilege. But the dog goes out with me and hunts with me. So they'll probably be hurt about that. Although, I don't know. When I come home from a hunt and I show them my birds, I'm so proud. I want to show them my birds. And they're cats. Cats love birds. They should love this. And I'll be like, check this out. And I'll be like, whatever.
Yeah.
Unless it's a dove, in which case they'll be, I'll take that.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, they'll. I hope that eventually they will snuggle the dog. I hope that. I
You
hope
could
they
get
will
there.
do that.
You could hope.
Yeah.
We had a dog like that. They were all buddies, and like we had a chicken and all that. They were all hanging out, but now the whole pack of dogs we have, they're not. They see a squirrel in the yard, they're like after it.
Yeah, I have skunks in my yard too, so I'm gonna have to manage that very carefully. I have a lot of videos of skunks on my porch. I have a video of an outdoor cat who likes to hang out on my porch. I have a video of her slapping a skunk.
Jeez.
It was a young one. Young ones don't spray, and they knew each other already. And the skunk got too close to her, and she's like,
Ooh, I've had that out in the duck blind, skunk.
Ooh.
hit a dog, my dog actually, and saw it happen, like going after a duck. He's on the duck scent, and then he turns and like totally redirects. And I was like, no, over. And I see the skunk on the and I'm like whistling, doing everything, and just goes right up to it and just gets blasted. And had a dog vest, threw that away. Like,
oh man.
At the time, my beard was longer, and I touched the dog and touched my beard. I had to shave all that off. But like, it was terrible. It
Wow.
was terrible. Yeah.
So I was grouse hunting in Wyoming a few weeks ago, and one of the dogs got skunked there. I mean, we were at super high elevation. I was not expecting a skunk, but suddenly we smelled it, and the dog took it to the face.
Oh yeah.
And he must not have got hit that bad because it wasn't too horrifying. I mean, it wasn't pleasant or anything, but it wasn't too horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, my friend didn't have to cut off his hands after washing his face or anything.
Just got grazed.
Yeah.
Yeah, lucky because when it gets in their eyes and stuff, it's kind of a bad deal.
No thanks.
Yeah, I'm thinking she's probably
thank
like, I'm already thinking about, okay, should I have a gallon of hydrogen peroxide in my car? Like, what can I do to be ready? I'm already like mentally making all my car modifications for the dog, just everything.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's fun and exciting and scary all at the same time.
Yes, it is. It's
There's
like being a parent,
so much going on,
except no tax break.
right? You claim it.
Yeah.
You're a writer. It's part of your writing gig.
That's true. If I write a book about it, there you go.
Hey,
Yeah.
How to train a dog, maybe.
Holly the dog trainer.
It'll be like my original hunting blog.
I was
Like
saying, it's
me
gonna be your blog.
blundering my way through dog training.
Yeah.
Do you have it? We kind of touched on earlier. Like, what's the biggest advice do you have for someone that's might be getting into mentoring a new hunter? Some of the do's and the don'ts there.
I have such a long list, and I'm going to try and randomly hit most of them. But the most important one is safety, safety, safety. And you guys know this. You guys are both shooting instructors. The first thing you have to do is make sure they understand and absorb the rules of gun safety, muzzle direction, safety engaged until you're ready to shoot, all those things. My favorite is muzzle pointed in a safe direction because when everything else goes wrong, that's the one that saves lives.
Yep.
So with a new shooter, you have to make sure that they have watched that. If you get a chance, go shooting with them. Take them shooting skeet. Watch how they handle the gun. And when you hunt with them the first time, this is the thing, you cannot hunt for yourself. You have to watch them.
Yeah, that balance, you want to hunt, but you're there for them.
Yeah, well, you're not only there to help them, but you're there to make sure they don't kill themselves or you.
Yeah.
And I've had some close calls with newer hunters before I had learned to be cautious. It was those close calls that made me cautious. I took a hunter we free roamed a little bit, and we were walking in muddy stuff, and he was standing in front of me, and some ducks came straight over us, and he went to shoot, and he lost his balance. So he's shooting, and I'm behind him, and he shoots about like that. So I could feel it going over my head, and it wasn't close, but it was still holy crap close,
Yeah.
It's like that could have been really ugly if he had fallen a little bit more during, a little bit farther during the trigger pull. Had a woman sitting before shoot time, and she was sitting where I could see her, and she had her gun on her lap, and the muzzle was pointed at me, and I said, you should point your muzzle the other direction. That's a pro tip for all the mentors. Don't scream at people. Just be really calm. Just like point that in another direction. Because when you scream at people, they do things like this. And if their hand's on the trigger, you don't want that. So she moved her gun and flipped it. And she's like, yeah, I wasn't sure how to hold it. And then a couple minutes later, she shot. And I'm like, I didn't see a duck. I said, what was it? And she's like, I didn't shoot. I just exited. The gun went off.
Ooh.
The gun that had just been pointed at me.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes earlier. So this thing doesn't happen all the time. Like, I was so spoiled at CWA programs. Most people are really, really good. And years and years and years of helping at programs, I only encountered 2 shooters whose gun handling I found to be just too unsafe. I didn't want to be around them. And then you have to make that call too if you're a mentor. If you have to remind a person over and over, watch your muzzle direction, finger off the trigger, get away. It's not your job to put your life at risk for them. So you have to watch that and evaluate it. And some people get it faster than others. So if I'm out in the field with someone and it looks like their gun handling is very safe, like I love the people who are so careful, like the gun's up like this and their fingers on the receiver, and it's like, I like you.
Yeah.
You've really got it going on. Then maybe you can think about taking some of your own shots. Another thing with new hunters, if you're going to shoot at birds while they're shooting at birds, people always want to do this. You both shoot at the same bird. You know dang well you're the one who killed it. You know they weren't on it. And then you say, look, you got a duck. That does not help them resist the urge to do that. And here's why. The way we learn shotgun shooting is every time we take a shot, our brain is remembering what we did, where our cheek was, where our eyes were, was our head off the stock, where was the bird, where was the lead in front of the bird. So if you just convince them that they did something right when they didn't do something right, you are cheating their brain of the opportunity to learn that lesson. I mean, just science-wise, it's a really big mistake to do that. So don't lie to them. If you're not sure who shot it, say, well, we both shot, I shot too, I'm not sure. At least give them that information so that they can absorb that. I think that's a really important thing. And we all want them to be successful, but not at the expense of their future success. You got to give them the opportunity to learn. And one other thing along those lines, I see this happen so many times. Someone will go out with a new hunter, and the new hunter's not having success, but they want to take home some birds, so you shoot some birds for them. That's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I always offer, if that's what people want, I always offer to give birds to new hunters so they can start cooking with it and keep their appetite going. But one thing you shouldn't do is shoot a bunch of birds and then walk into the check station or the clubhouse and act like they got those birds. A lot of hunters who take new hunters out want to do it, and it comes from a good place. You want them to have been successful, but it's a lie, and I have not met one single new hunter who feels comfortable in that experience. They all feel very uncomfortable because then they're supposed to go in and fake it and be like, oh, I got these. And what do you do after the hunt? What do? You tell hunting stories.
Yeah.
What if your hunting story is a lie? What if you came in with 6 or 7 birds on a strap and you didn't kill a dang one of them? What hunting story do you tell? You're gonna then create a whole fabricated story to do it. And new hunters don't need that. So it actually puts them in a really awkward position. Mm-hmm. If you want to give them the birds so they can take a picture with you, that's fine. But just be wary of making something up that they then feel the burden of, carrying on the act, the charade. Yeah. So that's not one of the most important things about new hunters, but I see it happen so much, and it's just so universal how the new hunters react that I think it's important to share that with people.
Yeah.
Those are good tips.
Definitely.
I'm sure I have some more checklists. Talk to them the night before.
Make sure they have everything.
Tell them put their stuff in the car the night before. If their car is in a place where it's not going to get broken into, like if their car is in a garage, load your car now. Here's what's on the checklist. Check everything on your license. Make sure they have the right joke in the gun. Oh man, especially if they went turkey hunting and now they're duck hunting. Get that full joke out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the things. Every mistake that you could have made when you didn't know what you're doing, they can make. And so that's the fun of mentoring, is that you get to help them not make those mistakes. And sometimes they're going to make them anyway.
Yeah.
And then they learn. And then you just reassure them. It's like, yeah, this isn't easy. I mean, the problem is in this era, there is so much stuff we can teach ourselves. Like the graphic I did here, I taught myself to do this using what was lynda.com. It's now LinkedIn Learning. And YouTube videos. How do you do this in Adobe Illustrator? That's how I learned that stuff. And it's really easy. How do I cook a duck? And you can go on YouTube and you can figure out how to cook a duck. But how do I hunt ducks? You can't just watch a YouTube video and figure that out. You can't download this. This is not the Matrix. You don't know Kung Fu. I mean, it takes time. And as a mentor, you can help accelerate that for them. But you can also say, look, it takes time. It takes a long time. Don't be hard on yourself. Just keep plugging away at it and enjoying the experience. And that's also your sign that you've got a winner of a hunter, is if they enjoy the experience, even if they didn't kill a lot of ducks, or even if they only saw a few ducks, but if they were like, this is amazing, and the sunrise and all the birds and the marsh wren landing on my shoulder and all those things that we love.
Yeah.
If they love that, then you got a keeper. And that's not just your mentee. Your mentee could be one of your best hunting buddies a couple years down the road.
Yeah. Definitely. I've gotten a lot of friends in, but it's funny because you'll go out and you'll take someone and it's either it seems like they have it right away, like this is awesome, or people are just, not for me.
Yeah.
Right,
it's like,
right.
It seems really pretty quick within the first hunt. If you're done by 11, you're like, yeah. Even if it's a phenomenal hunt and you're like, yep, that didn't get you going, you don't want to come back.
Yeah.
That's as good as it gets. You know?
And that's fine because that's less competition for us, being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need everyone to hunt. I don't spend time trying to recruit people to hunting if they don't want to hunt. But if you want to hunt, I want to help you because I don't want you to be one of those people shooting cormorants out there because you tried it by yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Because cormorants, I'm pretty sure, don't taste good.
I'm sure the bill.
And I'm pretty sure the
doesn't taste-
fine. Yeah, the fine. Yeah, that bill.
that bill doesn't taste good either. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Jeff, you got anything else?
Well, we could sit here and talk forever.
We could.
We appreciate everything that you've done for the hunting community, continue to do, and all this data stuff is awesome for hunters to see. So
Thank
just
you.
want to say thank you for joining us today and coming on.
Thanks. It was fun. It was good to see you.
Yeah, we
us too.
appreciate it, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
Right on.
Signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Save It for the Blind podcast. You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.